In South Korea, the looming shadow of war never fully disappears. There's always a risk that the nation's neighbour, North Korea, and its erratic, unstable dictator, Kim Jong-un, might decide to strike at any time, without warning. And with North Korea being one of just 9 nuclear powers in the world today, there's no doubt it could deal catastrophic damage to its southern counterpart. But South Korea has a plan, a new and powerful plan to crush North Korea if and when war eventually breaks out. And it all revolves around a single monster missile, the Hyunmoo 5. Hyunmoo is the name given to a whole family of South Korean missiles, dating back to the 1980s, and the original Hyunmoo 1, which was the first domestically produced ballistic missile used by the South Korean Army and entered service in 1987. It boasted an estimated range of 110 miles, or 180 kilometers, and carried a 1,100-pound, 550-kilogram warhead. Successors soon followed, like the Hyunmoo 2, which brought an extended range of up to 500 miles, 800 kilometers to the table, along with a warhead twice as large as the original. Next came the Hyunmoo 3, sporting a conventional 1,100-pound, 550-kilogram payload. This was more of a cruise missile than a ballistic model, like its predecessors, with a 3C variant allegedly able to cover up to 930 miles, 1,500 kilometers of terrain to strike its target. Hyunmoo 4 entered the arena next, bringing a bigger warhead than any of the others that came before. Weighing in at 4,400 pounds, 2,000 kilograms, this missile's payload is designed to be able to destroy underground facilities and reinforce bunkers on North Korean territory. It boasts a range of up to 500 miles or 800 kilometers, according to available data. The Hyunmoo 4 is already a beast of a missile, boasting enough firepower to wipe even the strongest enemy structures off the map. But South Korea wanted something even bigger and better to pile the pressure on its unpredictable neighbour. So, its teams of engineers got to work on the next evolution of the Hyunmoo family, the Hyunmoo 5, which made its official debut at the 76th anniversary of South Korea's Armed Forces Day ceremony on October 1, 2024. At the time, South Korean officials remained tight-lipped about the missile's technical specifications. In fact, they refused to actually show the missile itself at the ceremony, deciding instead to simply display its launch canister and vehicle. However, they still released some fascinating tidbits of information that sent military analyst communities into a veritable frenzy. Firstly, they revealed the missile's weight, a whopping 36 tons, which puts the Hyunmoo 5 on par with the United States' very own LGM-30 Minuteman III, one of the world's most powerful intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs. But it was the weight of the warhead that truly astonished experts and analysts around the globe. Never before has the world seen a non-nuclear ballistic missile with such a heavy warhead. Most conventional counterparts are significantly smaller, with warheads that tip the scales at 1 ton or less. And prior to 2021, when the South Korea ballistic missile range guidelines were abolished, it wouldn't have even been legal for Seoul to make a missile of such staggering size and strength. Experts soon began to sift through the limited available data and make estimations and assumptions about the missile's design and components. Many, like Joseph Dempsey, a research associate for defense and military analysis at the International Institute for Strategic Studies, came to the conclusion that, given its enormous heft, the Hyunmoo 5 most likely includes some sort of specialized component designed to damage or destroy bunkers buried deep below the Earth's surface. Dempsey explained all this in October 2024, stating, "The reported justification for equipping the Hyunmoo 5 with a warhead of such size is to penetrate North Korea's most hardened targets. The Hyunmoo 5's 8-ton warhead probably doesn't consist solely of high explosives and may include a dense metal penetrator precursor or tandem charges to enhance penetration and target damage." Other analysts opined that the missile is likely powered by a 2-stage solid fuel engine with an approximate length of around 52 feet or 16 meters and a diameter of around 5.2 feet or 1.6 meters. Official reports later revealed that the missile uses a 9-axle K901 transporter erector launcher vehicle produced by South Korea's own automobile manufacturer Kia Motors. Its warhead is strong enough to destroy structures buried over 300 feet, 100 meters underground, and its range is astonishing, reported up to 2,200 miles or 3,500 kilometers with its 8-ton warhead, or over 3,420 miles or 5,500 kilometers with an alternative warhead weighing less than a ton. South Korean officials have on numerous occasions referred to the Hyunmoo 5 as a monster missile, and it's certainly not hard to see why. It's one of the biggest bunker busters ever invented, with unprecedented firepower as far as South Korea's domestic missile programs are concerned. Combined with unbelievable range and speed, it's said to be able to reach peak speeds of close to Mach 10, 10 times the speed of sound, or over 7,000 miles per hour in its descending phase. It delivers the goods in every missile metric that matters, and it was designed with one clear purpose in mind: to give South Korea the power to take out North Korea's underground facilities should it ever feel the need to do so. That matters for two key reasons. First, the Hyunmoo 5 is Seoul's strongest deterrent. It puts pressure on Kim Jong-un and North Korea's military heads because they now know that their underground facilities are no longer as safe as they once were. And the same applies to whatever they happen to be storing in those facilities too, like their nuclear arsenal, which is said to be made up of around 50 weapons total. Prior to the Hyunmoo 5's unveiling, Pyongyang didn't necessarily need to worry about those nukes ever being targeted or taken out. But South Korea's monster missile changes the state of play entirely. Second, even if the deterring powers of the Hyunmoo 5 prove insufficient in the end, and North Korea attempts an attack on the south, Seoul will have an incredibly strong weapon to turn to. In the blink of an eye, South Korean commanders could deploy Hyunmoo 5s, targeting both underground bases and surface-level structures across the North's territory. With their huge range, lightning-fast speeds and gigantic warheads, these missiles would be able to deal devastating damage on a vast scale. Not at the same level as a nuclear weapon, but still enough to absolutely annihilate large numbers of enemy forces and wipe extensive amounts of infrastructure off the map in no time at all. And this isn't just a hypothetical plan or theoretical strategy that South Korea intends to put in place at some stage in the future. It's already happening. In October 2025, South Korean Defense Minister Eun Kyu-baek announced that the Hyunmoo 5 had begun mass production, with plans for full-scale deployment by the end of the year. The minister argued that since South Korea doesn't have the right to its own nuclear missiles, it has to opt for the next best thing, the Hyunmoo 5. As South Korea is a member of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty (NPT) that cannot own nuclear arms, I firmly believe we should possess a considerable amount of Hyunmoo 5 monster missiles to achieve a balance of terror. Mass production has begun, and measures are being sought to significantly increase output. The Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty was negotiated and signed in the 1960s, aimed at preventing the spread and development of nuclear weapons. It effectively stated that only those countries which already had nuclear weapons at the time, the United States, Soviet Union, United Kingdom, France and China, should remain the world's only nuclear powers. The vast majority of countries signed the treaty and agreed to its terms, including both North and South Korea. Yet North Korea eventually withdrew in 2003, becoming the only country to back out of the treaty, and has since gone on to acquire its own nuclear arsenal, carrying out its first nuclear tests in 2006. This placed North Korea's closest neighbor but greatest enemy, South Korea, in a precarious position. Understandably, Seoul didn't want to simply follow suit and withdraw from the treaty as well, as that could have had far-reaching ramifications, both politically and from a military perspective. However, it suddenly found itself situated right beside a brand new nuclear power, with the sudden and terrifying possibility of a nuclear attack on its land and people. Ever since then, South Korea has had to walk a veritable tightrope, working out ways to counterattack the North Korean threat without rising to anything that could be seen as some sort of provocation. It's had to figure out how to keep its people safe and minimize the risk of war on the Korean peninsula, all while dealing with the highly volatile regime of Kim Jong-un. There have been calls not just from South Korea, but from other nations around the world for North Korea to relinquish its nuclear arsenal. Thus far, those requests have not been heeded, and in September 2025, during a rare address at the United Nations General Assembly in New York City, North Korea's Vice Foreign Minister, Kim Son-gyung, took to the stand to defend his nation's stance on nuclear armaments, stating, "We will never give up nuclear weapons, which is our state law, national policy and sovereign power, as well as the right to existence. Doing so would be tantamount to demanding we surrender our sovereignty." That was the first time any North Korean official had addressed the General Assembly since 2018, shortly before denuclearization talks between US President Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un collapsed, and tensions once more began to rise across the Korean peninsula. In his speech, which lasted 16 minutes in total, the Vice Foreign Minister made it abundantly clear that North Korea needed to keep hold of its nuclear weapons in order to safeguard its security amid what it calls rising levels of aggression from a US-led bloc of nations. That bloc includes South Korea and Japan, both of whom have conducted multiple military exercises with the US and are evidently seen as enemies in the eyes of Kim Jong-un. The Vice Minister called his country's nuclear arsenal a vital war deterrent, and the North Korean Supreme Leader too has rejected any possibility of denuclearization, stating in September 2025, "Through its uninterrupted, rapid development and threatening demonstration, our nuclear deterrent has proved its capability for and reliability in defending the national sovereignty, territorial integrity, and the lives and safety of the people from foreign military threats, aggression, and attack. Steadily increased the security coefficient on the Korean peninsula and in the region, and made the enemy states dread the possible fatal consequences of an emergency." However, while nuclear weapons may help to make North Korea feel safer and more secure, they've obviously had the exact opposite effect in South Korea, which is focused on strengthening ties with core allies like the United States to bolster its position. Meanwhile, North Korea has done little to ease the tension. Since the mid-2010s, the country has carried out numerous missile tests on an increasingly frequent basis, launching weapons of various sizes and types in locations like the Sea of Japan. While some of these tests famously failed, others appear to have been successful, and North Korean missile capabilities have undoubtedly improved over time. Its ICBMs in particular, like the Hwasong-15, 17, 18, 19 and 20, all boast exceptional range of up to or perhaps even over 9,300 miles, which is far enough to reach the continental United States. The Hwasong-20 is one of the latest and most advanced additions to the Pyongyang arsenal. Unveiled on October 20th at a military parade in the North Korean capital, this missile has been dubbed the most powerful strategic weapon system in North Korea, according to the country's state-owned media. While its precise technical specifications remain a secret, it appears this missile has the capacity to carry a heavier payload and possibly travel even further than any of its predecessors, and experts from both the US and South Korea fear that Russia has provided technical assistance in its development, in exchange for North Korea sending troops and other resources to aid in the war with Ukraine. North Korean officials have also boasted of state-of-the-art hypersonic systems capable of reaching speeds of more than 5 times the speed of sound. This, combined with their agility and potential for mid-air evasive maneuvers, makes hypersonic missiles exceptionally difficult to intercept. And it seems clear to all that Pyongyang is doing everything within its power to amass an increasingly large and powerful collection of weapons it could use to overwhelm South Korean defenses. The more dangerous North Korea grows, the more important it becomes for South Korea to expand and improve its own defensive and offensive capacities. This is partly what led to the US agreeing to abandon the South Korea ballistic missile range guidelines in 2021, paving the way for Seoul to make missiles like the monstrous Hyunmoo 5. At a 2024 meeting between US and South Korea representatives, the US also promised to eliminate the North Korean regime if it ever dares use nuclear weapons against South Korea or America itself. Both sides reiterated that the ironclad US extended deterrence commitment to the ROK, Republic of Korea, is backed by the full range of US capabilities, including nuclear. They reaffirmed that any nuclear attack by the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, DPRK, against the ROK will be met with a swift, overwhelming, and decisive response. The United States also reiterated that any nuclear attack by the DPRK against the United States or its allies is unacceptable and will result in the end of that regime, in line with the 2022 US Nuclear Posture Review. This was a bold and powerful statement, but in the military world, words alone are sometimes not enough to truly strike fear into an opponent and deter them from launching an attack of invasion. For that, actions are also required, and the development of the Hyunmoo 5 was perhaps the biggest and most decisive action that South Korea could take given the circumstances, with the North showing no willingness to tone down the tensions across the Korean peninsula and strengthening ties with some of the world's major military superpowers like China and Russia. South Korea couldn't simply sit idly by, waiting and watching as its unpredictable neighbor grew more powerful with every passing year. It had to respond, somehow, and it's certainly done that. The Hyunmoo 5 may not be a nuclear weapon, but it certainly helps to even the odds between the two countries of the Korean peninsula, effectively cancelling out the dozens of nuclear warheads and ICBMs on Pyongyang's side of the border. The mighty missile also fits perfectly with South Korea's three-axis system, a comprehensive military strategy the country introduced in 2016 following yet another North Korean nuclear missile test. Designed to deter and respond to a possible North Korean nuclear missile threat, the three-axis system is made up of three core components: kill chain, Korea air and missile defense (KAMD), and Korea massive punishment and retaliation (KMPR). The Hyunmoo 5 could feature in both the kill chain and KMPR axes. Kill chain is the first of the three axes, following on detecting and destroying North Korea's missile launch sites, command centers, and nuclear weapon stocks before they can actually be used against the South. With the aid of satellite reconnaissance systems and surveillance drones to precisely pinpoint targets, Hyunmoo 5 missiles could be launched in a matter of minutes, raining down fire not only on North Korea's surface infrastructure and assets, but on any one of the more than 7,000 underground bases it's believed to operate. This way, Seoul could destroy Pyongyang's nuclear stockpiles preemptively, before the enemy even has time to launch a single warhead. Alternatively, if the worst-case scenario occurred and North Korea launched an attack on the South, either involving a nuclear weapon or some other large-scale strike, South Korea could initiate the third element of its three-axis system, KMPR. This axis is all about retaliation. It's about how Seoul could react to an attack and strike back at its enemy, dealing equal, if not greater damage, and wiping out the North's regime in one fell swoop. According to KMPR doctrine, if North Korea did initiate any sort of large-scale strike, the South would respond right away, launching massive precision strikes on Pyongyang to eliminate the North's leadership, important military headquarters, and core pieces of infrastructure. Once more, the Hyunmoo 5 would be an invaluable asset in this hypothetical worst-case scenario. Thanks to its speed, precision, and range, it would allow Seoul to rapidly hit back at the North and stand a strong chance of achieving its objectives, eliminating Kim Jong-un and other members of Pyongyang's leadership cabal and bringing the regime to an end no matter the cost. What's more, Seoul isn't stopping with the Hyunmoo 5. Defense Minister Un has already spoken about the potential to upgrade the missile's design even further, extending its range and making its warhead even bigger and deadlier. It remains to be seen how any upgrades or successive variants might function, but even in its current state, the Hyunmoo 5 monster missile should be more than sufficient to strike true fear into the hearts of North Korea's supreme leader and his military commanders. North Korea may have nuclear weapons hidden away under the surface, but thanks to Seoul's engineers, those weapons are no longer safe, and Pyongyang no longer has the upper hand. The tide has turned, the odds have evened, and South Korea finally has the weapon it needs to assert dominance across the peninsula. Now, learn more about how a prospective war between North and South Korea could play out in our detailed video breakdown, which assesses both sides' strengths, weaknesses, and odds of victory in a direct clash with one another. Alternatively, check out this video to see how North Korea's military may not be quite as powerful as it claims, as one of Pyongyang's top nuclear subs hasn't moved an inch in months, raising questions about the vessel's viability. And finally, make sure to subscribe to our channel too, and activate notifications so you can be one of the first to find out about any breaking news or major developments across the Korean peninsula and in other volatile regions around the world.